Hello. My hair is a little bit crazy. I switched the side of my part to mix things up a little bit for today after my shower. So, waking up from my Sunday nap, it's been a little bit harder to put down. So we'll see how many people we have tonight. This one's going to be a little bit shorter because I want to go back to watching the football game with my husband. So I checked the poll before I took my nap, and I must have looked in the wrong spot because I did not see anyone commenting on it at all. And so I was like, oh, I don't need to stay up for my nap and prep things and get things ready because nobody's responded, so I can just chill and relax. Well, then I woke up and started working on dinner stuff and checked my poll, and I was like, wow, we've had lots of people saying things and I haven't even known. So hi, Debbie. So we might not do a ton of crafting tonight, but I have a few One Sheet Wonder templates for the 6x6 designer series paper that I created to just show what type of templates I typically go to if I want to get the most out of my designer series paper. And those 6x6 paper packs are such an amazing price value for what you're getting. So I never end up hardly ever finishing through a whole paperback by the time they're retired, just because I get so many out of them, and I still end up having a ton left over. So I figured that we might not do a ton of crafting today, but I will show kind of where I go with those templates and how I use my inspiration off of those templates to jumpstart me into what I'm going to create. So I'm going to flip on my computer here really quick just to see if I can catch comments. Thank you for sharing, Debbie. And then anyone who wants to watch the replay, it won't be too exciting today, unfortunately, but I had forgotten all about the Super Bowl, and so Jeff and I usually will stay up and watch it together even after we put the kids to bed. So after a really long day, it sounds wonderful to just hang out and snack on things and watch the football game together. So we're gonna jump right in to showing our templates really fast here, and I'm gonna do my best not to shake you like crazy. I have not practiced with my stand in the last couple of weeks at all. That sickness that came through my house literally wore me out, and I spent about 4.5 hours in this room yesterday cleaning because the counters had been overrun, and I had not been in here creating almost the whole time that I haven't been with you guys. So just a little over 2 weeks. And to be honest, it's been very draining, and I haven't been very inspired, and I've just been going through this lull, which is totally normal. I know crafting people all over the place go through seasons that they just don't feel like they know what to do or want to do anything, and anytime they pull something out, they're like, what am I doing with this? So I know I'm not alone. I'm just being very vulnerable with you guys, that I just have not been super inspired, and I know part of it is probably because I don't hardly have any of the new product quite yet. I'm saving up. I'm getting ready to make an order, so it will be coming, but it's definitely been hard to pull myself out of this lull that I've been in. So I know that you guys will echo me if you go through seasons like that, and I've just been looking for inspiration in all different kinds of places. So when I pulled out the paper pack that I wanted to work on, I thought, even if I'm not creating 3 or 4 different projects or whatever, there's still things that we can be inspired by. So I'm glad you're here. Hi, Ashley. So I'm going to flip the camera around, and then I'll show you the templates that I've created for tonight. So we'll get started a little bit. I'm going to try really hard not to change the way that my camera is facing. I got to FaceTime with some family today. My dad has been in Haiti on a mission trip back into town today. So I FaceTimed with him when they were having lunch today. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I need a new case on my phone very, very badly. I'm so sorry, this is not even holding very well. It is my pop socket that is getting in the way. Okay, that was a nightmare. So I'm going to try not to go all kinds of crazy. Yeah, this is his third trip that he has been able to go on, and he loves going. So one of these days, I don't know if I'll be brave enough to go. Oh my goodness. I'm putting my cord up here so it doesn't get in the way. But my dad is a children's pastor, and so his time at the on the mission trip is mostly spent with people and at the orphanage and that sort of thing. But the team that goes are mostly medical people, so they do a ton of medical work while they're there. All right, so first I'm going to pull out the template that I most often use, and I'm going to show, this is the paper pack that I pulled out today. It is the Garden Impressions from our annual catalog, the 6x6 Designer Series paper pack. This paper pack, I think, is the only one that I've gotten of this, and I have used it a ton, and I still have so many that I can do with this. So this is probably one of my favorite paper packs in the annual catalog, aside from the wood grain. I know that that's usually my go-to when it comes to 6x6 paper, but the coordinating colors are listed here, which is always really helpful when I'm piecing things together to find something that works. So this is the first template that that I'm using today, and so I'm going to hold it up on the screen in case anyone wants to screenshot it, or if they're using it as a reference or a guide. This is typically my first go-to, and it's because my basic card layer consists of at least one layer of the 4" by 5¼ on the front, because our Designer Series paper is so amazingly beautiful that I want it to be front and center when I am creating. So I'm going to show you the side-by-side of the template with how it is matched up on my sheet, and I'm probably not going to piece them together in exactly the right place. We'll see if that ends up happening or not. So these are actually not the exact pieces, I'm noticing, but I think that it will be okay for the time being. So that is the sheet next to the template. So that is the side-by-side. So I'll put a little bit of space in between so that you guys can kind of see what that looks like for a second. My typical card base layer when I use this template is the typical A4 size card that is cut at 8½ inches long by 5½, and it is it's half of the sheet of cardstock, and then I will score it in the middle at 4¼ So that is typically my go-to base card. You can open it this way, or you can do it horizontally as well and do it that way. The layer that I do next is typically the in-between zone, is what I call it, from my 4" by 5¼ piece, which is this piece. This layer of Calypso Coral, I don't know if you can hear my husband, but he's He's cheering like crazy. So we're going to move this along because I want to know what's happening. So this layer is typically the middle layer, and I don't usually measure aside from, I'm just throwing out that honesty there. So I usually will do I think it's 1/8 of an inch, but again, I'm not super exact on it. Right in the middle, so that I have just a little bit of the border of the base of the card, and you can just see the tiniest little sliver of that next layer. So that is typically how I would use my first base layer. And I, for this card, would typically go this way and just, oh, thank you. Thanks, Mary. So I use that designer series paper as kind of a jump start into what I want to do on the top. And when I have this beautiful designer series paper, I wouldn't want to cover it up a ton. I'm going to probably go to one of our punches or a couple of our punches. And you guys know that my favorite go-to punches are these two punch, which is our Starburst punch right here and our 2-inch punch right here, because they layer so beautifully on top of each other. So that is typically the punches that I would use, and I would pick a sentiment that I knew would fit in the 2-inch. So I would go to our Abstract Impressions, most likely because it coordinates with the designer series paper that I'm using. And I would typically look through my sentiments, and I would see what sentiments are going to fit in the punch that I want to use. So this one would be, there's so much to love about you. So I would typically use the colored layer, either the Calypso Coral or the base card, which is the Melon Mambo. And I would punch the Starburst out in Melon Mambo with the Starburst punch. And then I would typically put a Whisper White layer for my sentiment so that I can use the color. Thanks, Ton. I think so too. I'm going to tell you that I get comments almost every single week that people are thinking that I'm doing new things to my hair. So that shampoo is amazing. And I have recommended it to several people because they can tell a difference, which is really cool. So I'm super thankful that you know what you're doing with my hair and that I can still get compliments on it like 2.5 months later. So that is what I would typically do. I may use the Seafoam Green on that sentiment just because it's a lighter layer. But I don't have any Seafoam Green right now. So we're going to go with the Whisper White. And I would normally go with a complementary color that is in those layers. And for this one, we are going to go to the Shaded Spruce because that is what our leaves are made with in this designer series paper. So what we're going to do with this layer is we are going to take our sentiment out of our Abstract Impressions set. I'm just going to peel that back. These are photopolymer stamps, and they work perfectly with our clear blocks, which mine are still filthy. I'm just going to throw that out there that they are gross. So I open up my ink pad just like that and ink that up in the Shaded Spruce. And there's a little speck on there. So I'm going to put my sentiment right over that. And I'm going to hold it down just a couple of seconds just to make sure that that ink soaks in to our cardstock there. That is the Whisper White cardstock that we cut with our 2-inch circle there. And what I'm going to do to add just a little bit of interest and color to it, I'm going to take the Calypso Coral if I can find it on my cart over here. I did not pull out the ink yet. So I'm going to pull out that Calypso Coral color, which is also the coordinating color that we used on our layer back there. So this is that Calypso Coral color. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the flowers out of the stamp set. So this is our stamp set that we're using. And we're going to take, let's do this flower right here, just to bring a little bit of color to, actually we might use the one that has a little bit more white space. So we're going to take this one, and because I don't know where my tiny block is, we're going to use one that's probably a little bit too big. I wouldn't normally use that big of one. This is the old ink pad, so they open just a little bit different, but I'm going to use mine until they dry up on that one. So this is again Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to take it into a little bit of interest with the flowers, just to bring a little bit more color into what we're making here. So I just did a 3-generation stamp with the first generation is the darkest one, and then the next generation would be that next layer, and then a 3rd generation with that one. So we're going to put that one mounted on top of our Melon Mambo, just like that. So we're going to close up our ink, and then we will add just a couple little embellishments to that card, and that would be how I would go from this template to creating a card with that layer. So we're going to pull out some, we'll use this pretty, this is our Whisper White polka dot tulle ribbon. And so this looks really pretty, and you can see through it, so it doesn't take away the beauty from the Designer Series paper that we're using. So I'm just setting my inks aside, and I'm going to pull out my adhesive, and we will start putting our layers together. I'm going to scooch this template aside, and we'll move these pieces over just to have a little bit more space on here as we put this card together. So this will be the only card that we're going to actually work on live tonight. But I will show you 2 more templates. Thank you, Mary, for the update. So I'm just using our snail adhesive. This part could go really fast in the game too, so I may miss it, which is just, it's okay. So I'm just layering this up on my card here, trying to give an equal amount of coverage all the way around, almost. It got really quiet in there, so I'm wondering what he decided to do, if he turned it off or not. Doesn't typically happen. So I'm going to go this way for this card. So I'm going to put 3 different strips of adhesive on this layer. And then we will put on our little ribbon here. So what I want to do is I want to kind of create a figure 8 sort of. So I'm going to cut quite a bit, and then we'll just kind of mess with it. Thank you, Debbie. So we're just gonna, I typically don't have a ton of reason in my head when I pull out an embellishment. I just kind of make it up as I go along, which sometimes works in my favor and sometimes doesn't. So I will say that it is always a risk. So I'm just taking the tulle ribbon, kind of putting it in a figure 8, and then just kind of looping it and looping it. So I hope that you can, it's kind of like a butterfly. So what we're gonna do is put that on the back of our Melon Mambo, which I just noticed that my nails kind of match. That's fun. So I'm gonna find my Scotch tape, which I think is still here. Wonderful. And take off that messy piece. So I'm going to take some Scotch tape, and I'm just going to tape it down just so that it's kind of coming out from both sides. Nothing too rhyme or reason to it, just so that it has a little bit of interest around it. And I'm going to take a little bit of snail adhesive on our sentiment there. So we're just putting that down there, and then we will pop this one up with dimensionals, just like this. I think he may have turned it off, actually. He may not even be watching it anymore. Wouldn't that be funny if that was happening? We watched the beginning together. So that is what I would do with my 4" by 5 1/4 from my template there. So that just gives a little example of how I would take the template and piece together some layers to get started off on a project. If I am feeling like I'm in a dry spell and I don't have a ton of inspiration, I will typically look on Pinterest, or I would look on our groups that we have that I'm a part of, and just try to be inspired by those. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you 2 other templates that I have used in the past. This one is, I'll hold this up just for a second so you can see that. This is another one that I use quite a bit. This piece doesn't often get used. It usually goes into my scrap bin, but I will use the rest of it pretty often. These 2 would go on a front of a card, and then this one and this one I would typically use as an accent, either on the front or on the inside of my card, just for a little extra interest. So I've used a different paper from that same paper pack, so I thought I would just show you again what it was like to be pieced together and how I would cut it on there. So this is the 3 on the top, and then these are the 2 there. So that is that template, and I hope you can see that. So I would probably get 2 cards out of this setup, and about 2 cards out of the last one that I did too. So 1 sheet of 6 by 6 at least goes into 2 cards, and if I didn't do anything on the inside of my cards, I would most likely get up to 4 with these templates that I have made for you guys tonight. So that is the second template. And the third template, I'll have to pull it out, it got buried, is an even more simple template that I use again quite often. This is, the first one is probably my first go-to, and this one probably comes in second, at least for that. So I actually made a couple of other examples to show of what I would do for this one. So these are typically the layer that I would go to if I were to use the 3" by 5 1/4. And then this inch I would actually cut down to put on the inside. And then again, it would just have that small little bit that would not get used from this template. So I will scooch this aside and show you lined up next to each other again, just so that you have a little bit of an example on that template. So, hi Kayla. So that is the third template that I made just to show as an example of my go-tos when using up my 6x6 designer series paper. So I hope that even though it was a little bit of a different live today, it still gave you ideas or maybe inspired you to do a little bit of creating and using that designer series paper up that you may have sitting around. So this is the first one here with the card that we made from this layer here. And then I'll put out the other templates to show what other templates we worked with tonight. So again, this is a super short live, and I hope you guys are all having a great night and a great week. Next week, let me see what next week is. We have an annual meeting at our church next Sunday night, so I will not be live next Sunday, so it'll be a couple of weeks before I'm live with you again. But I'm going to work on some Step It Up cards that show for the beginner's stamper, a casual stamper, and then the avid stamper. So just to give you an idea of the things that I'm going to be working on for the next Sunday that we're together. So that'll be in 2 weeks that we'll be together. Next Sunday, we will not have a Sunday night live stamping. So I hope that you guys have a great couple of weeks and that I will see you all again here next time. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.